proceed. It should be. Yeah. You should be second time. Okay, thank you for your kind, I think, introduction. Thank you, Judith and Robert, for inviting me again in Budapest. And thank you again for writing wrong my name. My first name is 2L. Danielle is 2L in French. Is the first name of girls. So if you expected a good-looking girl, sorry, I'm a man. Good-looking, yes, not a man. So what I'd like to discuss with you in the next 20 or more minutes is a way of thinking of psychiatry which comes from a concept of Levi-Strauss. You see, the antropophagic psychiatry, so the cannibalistic psychiatry. My point will be, we have to be cannibalistic. We have to eat patients in a certain way, clearly, metaphorically, to be clear. And what you see here is it's a sculpture of a fountain of Bern. I'm not sure it's the children eater. I'm not sure the idea was the same as the one I'd like to defend. So, this is a picture I took last year in Seoul. I was for an addiction conference too. They have addiction problems there too. And what I saw there in the Museum of the Palace is this strange game. And when I came back, I tried to know what it is, and the game is called Judagiri. Here you see it, a picture of the real game. It's a tradition, not only in Korea. It's a tug of war ceremony, so where two teams throw on a rope. One rope, smaller loop. There are two ropes, not one, as for example in Scotland. Two ropes where one enters the other, one loop enters the other, and this is the definition of sexual intercourse, or something productive, and which gives rise to sports association with fecundity. And the Eastern team, because they usually arrange themselves, the two teams, in a way that one looks to east and the other to west. The East team looks either to west and inversely. And the Eastern team is called Sujul, I suppose I spelled right. And it's the male rope. It's the larger, and it's the smaller loop, and the Western team is the female loop. And there is some dialectic, and they usually, in Korea, not everywhere, they arrange it in a way that the female team wins. So the male team has to contribute, clearly, but at the end, the result is only a product of the female team. You see the idea. And because the male ropes are huge, they can't be hauled. There have to be smaller ropes attached to throw them. And I show you this because it's a metaphor of what has been called the structuralism. Behind things are usually greater structures, which may, if we see them, may explain why the world is the way it is. So the players attach smaller side ropes to it. And finally, psychiatry may be seen also in somewhere in that way. Usually we think of struggles between an outpatient vision and a hospital-centered vision, between efficacy, cost effectiveness. Probably you have the same problems we have in Switzerland. We try to talk clinics and our respondents talk Swiss francs. civil rights, security, symptoms, against quality of life, and so on and so on. But finally, there are probably some main views, more fundamental views we should find and discuss, and that's what I try to do today. Direct in current psychiatry, most restricted to the discussion about distribution of resources. When we talk about should it be outpatient or inpatient centered, the main discussion, at least in Geneva, how many francs will we give to the outpatient facilities and how many francs to the hospitals, and how to finance all those things. Which triggers some fights for resources instead of fights for ideas. I think they should be fights for ideas. So the basis of all this is structuralism. It's a philosophy. The philosopher could define it surely better than I will, and it has been taken over by several disciplines, sociology, anthropology, linguistics, but also psychiatry. Binswanger, for example, was a huge defender of this way of thinking. The idea is that elements of culture, of human culture in the sense, in the larger sense of thinking of ideas, must be understood in terms of the relationship to a larger overarching system of structures, the big ropes. In order to uncover structures that underline the things that humans do, think, perceive, feel, do. Structural anthropology in this sense, and then I will come to Levi-Strauss. Meaning is produced and reproduced again and again within a culture through various practices that serve systems and signification. And psychiatry is just one of those practices. It's within psychiatry maybe we can understand larger systems. And here I come to the most famous book, maybe from of Claude Lévi-Strauss, who was a French anthropologist, died 2 or 3 years ago at more than 100, was really aged, and he wrote in the sad tropics. There's just a small paragraph, but I think really important, who has been cited among others by Michel Foucault. And he made a classification based on his research in South America, in Brazil. He found that some societies, we can call them anthropoemic societies. Societies that vomit humans. They vomit those they don't want to be present. From anthropoemia to vomit humans. In order to expel, that's a citation, to expel these degraded beings, degraded forces from the body public by isolating them for a time, just for, or forever, denying them all contact with humanity in establishments devised to that express purpose. Clearly, a psychiatric asylum, a psychiatric hospital is that. A retirement home is that, and so on and so on. And on the other sides, there are antropophagic, in some way, in a real way, cannibalistic, or in a metaphorical way, cannibalistic. Those confronted to certain individuals possessing dreaded forces will be absorbed within the society with the aim, two aims, or one, neutralizing them, so they cannot harm anymore, or profiting for them. So we can use those forces. And this small difference will be a bit the central point of my talk. So this gives 3 types of society: anthropomemic, vomits, the encapsulating anthropophagic. The anthropomemic You probably can see it not only in Hungary, in the whole Europe. We throw out the migrants. We don't anthropophage them, or we try to throw them out. We had that also in Switzerland in the 90s with drug users, and then afterwards with the famous four-pillar policy. We didn't throw them outside the society, in the needle parks and so on. We integrated them in some structures. And I'm heading myself one of those structures. So we have that encapsulating anthropophagic society, which makes a capsule around those traded forces to neutralize and the assimilating anthropophagic society, who uses the forces, tries to use them, to profit from them. So, anthropoemic psychiatry, within the frame of usually of an anthropoemic society, clearly rejects those who represent the treated forces, those out of the usual physiological logic. A mad person hasn't the same logic, so it shouldn't have its place within our physiological logic. Or the foreigner who speaks another language, who has another way of thinking things, of seeing the metaphorical, the toxic element will be vomited. The society, or part of society, is an organism, is a living body, and will vomit the toxic element. Put at distance physically, cut all contacts with the normal world. Once we did it with the lepers, which is outside of the city, in order that they do not rotten the flesh of healthy citizens, they do not infect us, and nowadays the mad, in order that he does not infect rotten or normal or good healthy logic. It's clear that at some time it wasn't possible anymore. Anti-psychiatric movements surely played a role, but probably also the experiences during the Nazi regime with concentration camps, to throw them out, to vomit them, wasn't anymore acceptable. So a new way of managing these treated forces was necessary. And this gave rise to the anthropophagic approach, also in psychiatry. Instead of throwing them all out to the asylum, to the psychiatric hospital, we had to incorporate the deviant into the society. But, yes, sure, incorporated, but it's still dangerous, still infectious. So we have to confine them, restrain them, restrict them, to hide them, if possible, inside the society. What gave rise to what we call usually the outpatient clinics or therapeutic communities, maybe. I know I'm provocative. Still disjointed from society. Inside, but if possible, no contact, in order to neutralize those treated forces, which call into question normality. And again, the metaphor seems really to function. Here, what you see is a foreign body granuloma. So, also in the body itself, the human body, we have already this mechanism of to throw out the toxin. If we aren't able, we try to isolate it, and this builds a granuloma, which may be costly, but surely will allow the body, the organism still to survive. So, what will be an encapsulating anthropophagic psychiatry? I think it's the first time I'm able to say it in one sentence. Encapsulating anthropophagic psychiatry. Yeah. The perturbing agent can be expulsed, or it be too costly. So homeostasis, that's the important thing. We try to keep stable the functioning, will be safe by encapsulating the forever. This will be surely costly, but still remain cost efficacious. And the system, the rest of the system has to function around. It functions not through the granuloma, it has to function around. So it has to be also situated not at a vital point of the system. Ideally, peripherically, it should not bother too much. So, the strategic objective is still to functionally break off the defined agent from its environment. It's there, but it should not interact. Not necessarily a geographical confinement, as we had with still with some structures within the city. Rather, interventions to challenge the legitimacy of participating in the civil society. They are still patients, and they have still to consider it deviant, not being part. We accept them inside. Our drug users in the heroin prescription programs, okay, they can take the heroin, but please do not bother the neighborhood and surely don't give them any voices. The disruptive potential will still be reduced by denying them various means and some citizen capabilities. Our patients usually don't vote, and you know, in Switzerland we have polls and votes at least 4 times a year. If you ask them, nobody, no one of our patients ever went to vote or go to vote. I think we should oblige them. They should become again citizens. So, therefore, it's necessary to implement a social control logic of the mental asylum in structures located within the city. So we have to reproduce finally the psychiatric hospital, and often it is the case. You know, not necessarily in some structures you have here in Budapest, but in most, I think, worldwide. We have to organize a dispositif which still separates, takes off those dreadful forces from normal societal fabric, and we have to organize an encapsulating bureaucracy as social granuloma. For me, many of our outpatient clinics are nothing else than small asylums, but in another way. And within, and they seem to function within the society, but normally they don't. So we have to define what is this deviant. For an encapsulating system, the problem is deviant. Behavior that puts us at risk the society. This behavior can be rationalized, perhaps even explained by experts, by the encapsulating agent. It's a disease, a deviance. This is in the possession of physicians. We say what is wrong, and deciding it, it becomes our possession. A diagnosis is not a patient's diagnosis, it's our diagnosis because we decide it. The patient's experience is at best of secondary interest. It will be of interest if it helps us to put a diagnosis on him. For Michel Foucault, it's someone who is economically unproductive, an enemy of the capitalist disciplinary society, and describes disciplinary institutions, we all know them as machineries to discipline the non-productive. The non-productive is the central term. Those who do not work, who do not contribute to economic productivity. Those not only who do not contribute, who will possibly also derange it, render it less possible. But we have to know also that there can't be any deviant without an existing custom, without normality. But also no development, no progress, no evolution without deviation. I couldn't have an arm if there was only homeostasis, because if it's trying to grow, it would have immediately retracted. So I need deviation to have development. Only to live with homeostasis isn't life. It's an oxymoron. A deviant is also somebody who emanates, who brings something new, who wasn't there. The deviant is even the origin of most development. A genius is a deviant. Somebody who brings something new, who brings variance. The ability to take advantage of deviance is perhaps the only way to evolve. Deviance is, in this sense, an opportunity. However, it can become a danger if it goes too far, if it exceeds the system's adaptability. And there can be, probably there is the most noble mission of psychiatry. To keep it acceptable, but to keep it. So another definition it's almost the same. A deviant is somebody, is a person who does not produce for society. You have here several criteria, and what you see, the criteria is all the same. Fool, or also the offender, or the slacker, the person who does not produce economically. How to treat such a deviant? It has to correct the deviation, to make it normal, to make it economically productive. If it's not possible, so to prevent for interfering with economic productivity. Or to hit, okay, to vomit or to isolate. An alternative definition would be, he does not participate in the common life. No, not it does not produce, it does not participate. And what could be those participation? Political participation, clearly. Cultural participation, you're doing it Calvariate. Civil participation, surely also we're trying to do it in our facilities. Yeah, I try to accelerate. So, what has an assimilating anthropophagic psychiatry do? It's a psychiatry within the social body, like the encapsulating geographically, but also regarding the divine and the normal. It's not a psychiatry which separates, but it should confirm and probably also place and even impose the abnormal to the normal. Should incorporate in order to take advantage of these formidable forces. What will be the task? First, to contain the excesses which aren't possible to absorb, but also to impose, to moderate, but also to make those contacts. You have to make those contacts between the deviant and the normal in order to induce developments. So, to organize interferences between society and the deviant, not just to have interaction between them. Similarly, to interaction between artists and society. An artist is a mad person who still is able to be assimilated. An artist whose divines are too strong will not be accepted. He still will not be an artist. If he succeeds, he's original, and we have to render patients finally original instead of being divine. Let me, yeah. So what we need is a vision change of visions. Instead of isolating the deviance, keeping deviance and normality separated, we have to force interactions. But the interactions have to not to be too disruptive, have to be strong enough to induce some tensions, like a good artist will do. No, that's... we have to restore patients' dignity as citizens. They have to participate to the public life, to the civilian life. We have to give them back the existential possibilities. Existential possibilities means they have to find a sense within the social fabric and not outside. We have to give them the possibility to imagine roles, what Foucault also calls existences within the social fabric, and not just a role as a demarcation, as a point, as an example how not to do it. And yeah, that's my final slide. So we have to, from an asylum model, and the encapsulating anthropophagic psychiatry is still in this logic to an assimilating model. In the asylum model, where the patient is observed in an artificial spatial temporal context, in a facility, in vitro, amputated from his original context, we cannot understand really. There is a discontinuity between life and disease. We want to heal him before he goes back to society. And in the assimilating model, he's accompanied within his situation, outside, within the social fabric, in vivo. And then there we will have a continuity of life path, and probably we will abolish the psychiatric system, and I hope one time we will succeed. I thank you very much for your attention.